Hey, what's up, guys? It's Apologia here, back with another part of what if Naruto was in a political marriage. And before continuing this part, I would like to thank you guys for reaching 1k subscribers. We're almost at 1k, but we'll cross it soon. I can feel it. And I will also be uploading the final part of the one shot that I have started for the previous 2 days. What if Naruto went back in time with a twist? It's going to be the final episode and it's going to be a short one at that. The episode of the one shot, I mean, and I might upload the full chapter today of this series. So yeah, that's pretty much it. If you haven't, please leave a like and subscribe to my channel if you like the content of this channel. And without further ado, let's continue. And a disclaimer: if I stutter, I apologize for that. I am trying to remove this habit of mine, but oh well. Chapter 20. The Missed Opportunities. May is scary. She's really scary. When Naruto met her for the first time, he found her countenance slightly disarming. She was always smiling and yet still somehow capable of showing her different emotions through the emotionally limiting facial expressions. But now he realized that that was the face that she put on when she was being gracious diplomat to Konoha in order to foster future relations. Now that she was in her element, namely being the commander-in-chief of a small army, he truly found out what fear tasted like. As it was, he would be found in a large-sized tent surrounded by shinobi who were no less than Jonin level in strength, as they all argued and bickered over which higher up they could kill to produce the largest dip in strength in the hidden mist. At the head of it stood Mei Terumi. Gone was her carefree and slightly disarming smile, and in its place was a cold stare and a perpetual frown marring her face. Naruto wasn't capable of producing anything in the realm of decision, nor was he capable of saying anything that might be insightful. Nor was he capable of fighting whenever she sent out a platoon on a strategic mission. The only thing that he could do was to sit still and look exactly like the product of a diplomatic marriage. It was a strange feeling knowing that he wasn't able to do anything other than smile and respond courteously whenever someone addressed him. There was a sudden lull in conversation. Apparently, they all agreed on who to kill next and when would be the best to carry out the assassination of that person. All the shinobis in the tent started to file out, with the exception of Mei and Naruto. Naruto leaned back and slightly sighed in utter boredom. Mei put on her creepily smile visage once again. "What's wrong, hubby?" she asked. Naruto eyed her warmly. From the small amount of time they had interacted with each other, he concluded that he never knew how she was going to react once she smiled like that. "Nothing. It's just like kind of boring not being allowed to do anything, Naruto said. "Well, I've got some free time. Want to train?" May knew that his main concern was getting stronger to obtain his goals, so she decided to help him out in that regard. She was also aware that all her shinobi were running around like chickens with their heads cut off at the moment, and nobody could be spared to help them. You know any kenjutsu? You practice swordsmanship?" she asked. He tapped the sword that was belted to his wrist. "Anyone can carry a sword around. Do you honestly wish to practice and become a shinobi known for his swordsmanship skill?" Naruto eyed her warily once again. She sounded like she had something in her mind. "I don't plan on getting good at kenjutsu to be known for kenjutsu. I just want to do it I just want to do it because I want to become stronger, so I can protect the people precious to me." May nodded in understanding. She got up and walked to the back of the tent and picked up a modestly sized storage scroll. Unrolling it on the table, she unsealed its contents, which turned out to be three very strangely shaped things. These, she gestured to the things that spanned the table, are the three legendary swords of the seven swordsmen that we currently have with us. Naruto immediately gave the swords the attention that their merit deserved. Wait, so these are the swords like that of Zabuza carried with him? Mae's face turned serious once again. What? Do you know anything about Zabuza? Have you met him? She asked severely. Naruto froze. Her suddenly changing from her demeanor to another was one thing that he scared most, but the severity that she looked and addressed him with was slightly different and difficult to put into words. The only thing that he knew for sure was that he did not want anything to do with it. He's dead, Naruto said quickly. She sighed, sat down at the table, and adopted a dismal countenance. I should have known. It's been months since he last reported in all. She said with a tone that matched her countenance. Did you know him? Naruto ventured. Know him? He was the main source of the capital for the rebellion. Oh right, Zabuza said something about only taking the bridge job to raise money for the movement. I'm sorry for your loss, Naruto said quietly. May waved it off. Don't worry about it. I never really liked him that much. You sound like you know him. Do you know how he died? Naruto nervously scratched the back of his head. Well, he was on a job to make sure that a bridge builder was dead and the bridge was never finished. And my team was put on a job with a coincidence to make sure that a bridge does get finished and a bridge builder does live. May understood the hidden meaning in the words of Naruto with little difficulty. You killed him, she questioned. Naruto waved his arms in front of him furiously. No, it was my sensei. Well, not even him. A bunch of mercenaries banded up on him when he couldn't move his arms. She looked back and sighed explosively. After a moment of silence, she asked, Do you have the sword at least? It's at his grave. I'll go have a team of Genin shinobi retrieve it. But she looked at him sternly. Naruto respected Zabuza. He didn't practically enjoy being in the presence of the demon of the mist, but he did believe that Zabuza should at least have his sword with him in the afterlife. However, the rebellion army and standing forces was small. It was mainly composed of Jonin and Chunin, with Kekkei Genkai, a few clans that put their full support behind the rebellion, and a few higher-ranking normal shinobis who took up arms for a fight for justice. So even Naruto knew about their needs for military clout and moral support. Never mind, he said dutifully. She nodded. So like I was saying, before we got off on that tangent, he noticed that she had her demeanor smiling back on her face. These are the 3 blades of the 7 swordmen of the mist that we have in our possession. Obviously there are 4 more, but they are taken by Chojiro, Raiga Koresuke, Kisame Hoshigaki, and now deceased Zabuza Momochi. So you're letting me take one? Naruto said with wide eyes. Even if he hadn't heard of the 7 swordmen before meeting Zabuza, he now knew of the great strength that they all possessed, and was honored that he was being chosen to be given one of such swords. Nope, she said with her still smiling visage. Naruto's heart sank quite a bit. Then why are you showing me these? He whined out. Because these aren't just swords, these are semi-sentient beings. Some more so than others, but any of these swords would reject you if they didn't like you. I only brought them out to see if any of them liked you enough that they would imprint on you, but that usually never happens. Naruto wasn't quite as enthusiastic at the prospect of being teamed up with a semi-sentient blade. So they're alive? He asked. Nope, they're only a blade, but they could be truly considered alive, and that Samehada wielded by Kisame Hoshigaki, that semi-sentience part only comes into play when one of the wielders believes that they would be best used by the person that touches them. They all requires an extremely practical mindset and fighting style. So they almost never choose people unless the master of the previous blade passes it on an apprentice that they have taught the ins and outs of. Naruto nodded in appreciation. So, How were these things made? She laughed sheepishly. We don't really know. They've been associated with the land of water for so long that we lost the records about their origins. But a lot of people suggested that the sage of the sixth path created them. Naruto trepidatiously approached the sword. There was a sword that particularly consisted of a large scroll and a sharpened slab of metal poking out of it. What's this? Touch it, you'll know if it accepts you. He did it as was instructed, but couldn't feel anything special happen in any sort of way. Naruto moved on to the next one, which was particularly just a huge hammer changed to an huge axe. He was met with the same success as the first one. The last one was probably the most sword-like of the bunch. It was a double-edged blade with a long blade attached to a long handle. The sword was straight and tapered off gradually to a very sharp point, giving it an appearance of a needle. When Naruto touched it, something strange happened. He felt his chakra being drained into the blade. Well, it didn't feel like the sword was forcefully taking his chakra, more like it was accepting it. His chakra felt like it was falling into the blade as opposed to the blade trying to selfishly take it away from him. His reaction to having his chakra being accepted in the blade made eyes widen in surprise. The Nuibari had only one swordsman in all of the Kiri's history. It was a strange blade, and it called for a fighting style that was so unique that no shinobi other than Kushimaru had been able to successfully implement it. Oh my god, May remarked silently. Naruto picked up the blade. It was a long sword that reached about 4.5 feet in length. That was almost in the same length as Naruto was. Despite its size, it was almost impossibly light, and the chakra that it accepted and was still accepting it into it gave it a bright blue sheen. He gave it a few experimental swings with both hands first, then one hand. It could be successfully implemented either way. Naruto gave May one of his patented fox smiles. I like it. May was dumbfounded. The showing of the blades to Naruto had only been an experiment, an impossibility, and one in a million chances for success. But his sword, for whatever reason, decided that it liked Naruto. She got up silently and walked to the back of the tent and brought out an extremely dated scroll with the kanji for the name Kushimaru on it. Handing it to Naruto, she said, "These are the writing and teachings of Kushimaru Kuriarare." I don't know what that means. Anyways, he never took an apprentice, so he wrote all that he learned about the sword down for any of the future generation. Naruto nodded and took the scroll from the May graciously. Looks like he had a sensei in the form of a written teaching from a dead guy. Just what he needed to spend the week with. I have to go and practice with this, Naruto said, still staring at the sword in silence. Looking up at May, he said, "Thanks so much for this honor," and promptly bowed in front of her. After doing what the situation socially called for, he sped out of the tent in search for the clearing that he could use to practice his newfound sword. "Be careful," she shouted out after her husband left. Link break. Somewhere in Tsuchi no Kuni. Grrr. Kisame grunted under the weight that was pressed against his back. He and his partner were taking a leisurely walk through a nondescript canyon on the borders of Tsuchi no Kuni. Itachi seemed to be enjoying walking around and just taking in the scenery, but Kisame wasn't very keen to it at the moment. This mostly had to do with the giant object that he was carrying in conjunction with Samehara on the back. The giant fishman glared at Itachi. "Why am I carrying this guy?" he asked laboriously. "Because you are more physically imposing," Itachi said plainly. Kisame stopped to reposition the man on his back so he could better carry him. "I get that, but can't we distribute the weight between us?" "And how do you propose to do that?" Itachi said with no emotion present in his voice. "I don't know. Aren't you supposed to be shinobi? Shinobi are resourceful." You didn't answer my question. Kisame sighed. Why don't we create a sling out of ninja wire and carry him together? I don't have any ninja wires, Itachi said. Neither did Kisame had. Why don't we summon some animals to carry him for us? I'm not sure if ravens are the best at carrying large and imposing men. Neither were sharks for that matter. Kisame was getting peeved at this point. Can't we just to hypnotize him into walking himself for us? Kisame roared at Itachi. He has to be conscious first for it to work and take effect on him, Itachi said. The man that Kisame was holding on his back was almost as large as Kisame himself, but what really made him difficult to carry was the ruby-red furnace armor that he was sporting. Itachi eyed him blankly. Why don't you take off his armor? Kisame grinned humorlessly. You haven't fought anyone who used furnace armor before, have you? Itachi was silent. They are usually rigged to explosives whenever they come off. This guy is heavy, but I'm fairly certain that we need him alive. Itachi nodded. How much longer is to HQ? About 10 more miles. Kisame ground out loudly. They had barely made it half a mile at this point. This was not going to be a fun trip for Kisame. Link break, somewhere in the land of water. Naruto's eyelids were getting progressively wider the more and more he read Kushimaru's scroll. The Nuibari was a strange device. It was shaped like a sword and could be used in close quarter encounters, but its main use was that of a long range throwing weapons. He hadn't noticed it before, but there was a hole at the pommel of the weapon that ninja wire spewed out of and could be tied to. Through a series of different applications of chakra to various points on the blade, the wire would either retract or extend further, allowing for someone to throw their main weapon at the person and have their weapon back in their hand with no inconvenience. The scroll listed a myriad of ways that the weapon could be used and manipulated as a projectile, yet there was little to no mention of anything that had to do with close quarters. As mentioned before, Naruto considered himself a close-range fighter and a shinobi, but the way that Mei had described the sword selection process made it sound like the sword only felt like it could be implemented to its full potential by Naruto. This logically led Naruto to believe that he would be a natural at throwing the weapons around like it was supposed to be. After carefully reading into the scroll about how to throw the weapon, where to push his chakra into the retracting or extending the wire, and how to retrieve the sword in mid-air, he positioned himself in front of a tree, with one behind him as well. Cooking his arm back like one would expect a javelinier, Naruto let the Noibari fly at the tree undeterred. To his astonishment, the sword pierced directly through the tree and out to the other side, with very little sound of impact upon the large trunk. Bracing himself, he got a good grip on the wire that he was holding on to and pushed his chakra into the wire in such a way that it traveled to the sword and instructed it to swing the wire back into itself. The sword quickly came to the tree and back through the hole that Naruto made, but he accidentally made it wide the wire back into itself too fast. This resulted in a speed and rapidly twirling Nobari flying in the air at Naruto. Crouching down quickly to avoid the likelihood of being impaled, he heard a soft thunk emanating directly to the side of his ear. Slowly turning his head to the side, he saw Nuibari impaling the tree that he was standing behind at an awkward angle. Naruto's heart was racing. He breathed heavily and fell to the ground on his ass. There was a drip of blood slowly falling down the edge of Noibari's blade. Raising a hand to his head, Naruto discovered that there was a small cut on his ear bone. It wasn't particularly deep, barely enough to even draw blood, but Naruto was freaked out greatly. at the prospect that he nearly brain-dead himself by training with the sword. There was a rustling of leaves to his side. After turning his head to face the person who was making the rustling, his eyes widened in surprise at the pro- perpetrator of the sound. "Hey brat, how it's going?" Jiraiya said with a grin and with a small wave. Still on the ground, Naruto merely raised a hand to greet the perverted man. Walking up down to Naruto, he took stock of the situation. "Almost trained yourself?" Naruto nodded. "That's the Noibari." Naruto nodded. No sign of emotion on his face, weird breathing patterns, only vaguely aware of what's happening around him. Yup, he is in shock right now. Shock is a disorder that refers to the mentally traumatic symptom, acute stress reaction. Shock occurs in a person whenever an emotionally or physically traumatic thing happens to them. It's a strange psychological disorder that, when untreated, could develop into a far more severe forms of mental disorder, such as PTSD. Along with that, it's also very difficult to treat with anything other than long-term exposure to the therapy. Jiraiya didn't have that time, so he opted to walk over to the downed Naruto, grab him by the shoulders, drag him up on his feet, and proceed to backlash him with a "snap out of it," yelled at him for extra measures. Never let it be said that slapping someone who is in shock to snap them out of it was a good idea. That being said, it had been an immediate positive reaction on Naruto. Catching himself before he fell to the ground, Naruto rightfully himself and yelled at his godfather. "What was that for?" Jiraiya placed both hands on his shoulder and said slowly, "Are you alright?" Naruto nodded, and with a pout on his face, Jiraiya got up and said, "Great. Now would you mind telling me how you managed to almost kill yourself?" "I was training," Naruto said. Jiraiya deadpanned at that. "Why are you here anyways? I thought that you had a spy network or something." "Well, considering that we're now allies with the rebels of the Hidden Mist, I thought it would be a good idea to share information while I had the free time. Then they told me that you got here this morning and that you were training in the woods with your new sword, so I thought it would be a good idea to check up on you." "Well, thanks, I guess," Naruto said. "Don't worry about it, brat. So, have you gotten anywhere in your Biju training?" Naruto looked at him strangely. "Biju training?" Jiraiya deadpanned once again. "Yeah, your Biju training. The whole reason that you're on this training circuit is probably learning how to control the cube's power." "Well, nobody told me that," Naruto said with a deadpan. Jiraiya sighed audibly and muttered, "I'm going to have to talk to someone about this." Under his breath, looking back at Naruto, he asked, "So if you're not training with Kyuubi, then what have you learned so far?" "Well, they taught me some Kenjutsu in Kumo. Fu taught me some survival techniques in Taijutsu. I learned this cool jutsu called Earth Walking in Eva. And now I just got the Nuibari here, but it's going to be hard to train with," Naruto said dismally, remembering how he almost killed himself not so moments before. "Why don't you just use shadow clones?" Jiraiya asked. "Huh? Why don't you use your shadow clones to help yourself train with something that potentially lethal?" "How would that help?" Naruto asked. Jiraiya looked at Naruto in disbelief. "Didn't Kakashi tell you about what shadow clones are for?" "I know what shadow clones are for, but do you know how to use them?" "I put my hands into a cross seal." "No," Jiraiya interrupted. "I'm not asking if you know how to physically do the shadow clones technique. I'm asking you if you know how to use them to their fullest extent." Naruto was getting confused at the point. "I make them and they help me fight." Jiraiya pinched the bridge of his nose in frustration. "Okay, kid, I'm going to tell you all about the shadow clones, so you better listen closely, as I'm going to say this only once." Naruto nodded attentively. The shadow clone technique is technically called a kinjutsu because when created multiple clones, your chakra is split up evenly amongst all of them, allowing for you to die quickly for chakra exhaustion if you overstep your bounds. "I know this already," Naruto interrupted. "Shut up, kid, I'm not done." Even though it is labeled as a kinjutsu, practically every jonin in Konoha and their dog knows the jutsu because it's just so damn useful. Everything that the clone experiences, your experience as well, making it the ideal spying technique as well as the ideal training technique. I don't get it, Naruto said with narrowing his eyes. Jiraiya had been expecting this. Since you since your shadow clones is made up of and operated on your chakra, once that chakra is returned to you when the clone dispels, you retain all their memories that they got in their lifespan. So if you sent a shadow clone to go spy on someone, even if they noticed that they were being spied on, they wouldn't be able to do anything about it because if they dispelled your clone, all the intel that the clone managed to get would still get to you anyways, Jiraiya said slowly. Naruto nodded his head. I think I get it. But what does that have to do with the trading? Everything that your clone learns got transferred to you. So if your clone accidentally brained himself, you would get all the knowledge of how not to brain yourself with all the perks of not being brained. Honestly, why didn't Kashi tell him about the aspects of the shadow clones? Jiraiya thought mentally. Oh, that's so cool. Naruto immediately made shadow clones and instructed it to go train with Naiburi. The clone gave off a salute, grabbed the Nuibari, and ran away from the two of them so that they wouldn't get in harm's way of the needle blade. Once a decent amount of time had passed in silence, Jiraiya broached a new subject. So, kid, how's the whole wife situation going? What do you mean by that? He asked with a little blush on his face. He adopted a perverted demeanor. Come on, Brad, something must have happened, Jiraiya implied suggestively. Naruto, pressed Zavier's blush, told Jiraiya all he needed to know. Jiraiya sided up to his student. Something did happen. I guess, Naruto said bashfully. Jiraiya's eyes began to wiggle furiously. Naruto sighed explosively. Me and Kurotsuchi got together. Jiraiya's eyebrows ceased their wiggling. What? The one with the Eva? Yeah. And what? Naruto screamed at Jiraiya. How far have you two gotten? Naruto blushed again and didn't answer. Oh, come on, kid. You can tell me. Well, we kissed. Jiraiya gave him a thumbs up. Nice one, kid. Only a week in and you already got one of your boys head over heels in love with you. Jiraiya said with anime tears in his eyes. She doesn't love me, Naruto said quickly and without thinking. Jiraiya quirked an eyebrow in confusion. I mean, we like each other, but I don't, we don't. Naruto was having a hard time putting what he was feeling into words. Jiraiya clapped a hand on Naruto's shoulder. Don't worry, kid. I was only teasing you. I mean, I like her. I really like her, but Naruto trailed off. Love's a strong word, Jiraiya ventured. Yeah, I guess. Jiraiya chuckled a bit. So my boy has finally started dating a girl. I'm so proud of him, albeit it took him getting married for it to happen, but I'm proud nonetheless. Naruto chuckled a bit too. Thanks, Pervy Sage. So, how's your other wives doing? Well, me and Yusto had a bit of a situation, but it's alright now. Situation? Don't ask. Oh, well, she's kind of crazy, but she's still nice. And she's getting more friends back at Taki. That's good. I imagine that she didn't have the best of childhoods with her being a Jinchuriki and all. No, she didn't. It's getting better though. Kurotsuchi and I started going out. Any other details you wanna share with me about? Jiraiya asked with a perverted leer. Even if I did, I wouldn't share them with you, Naruto said with vindictively. Alright, boss kill, Jiraiya said with a pout. A fake one. I haven't been to Sand yet, so I don't know how Tamari is, and May... Yes? Jiraiya asked in great anticipation. I don't really know her, and I also haven't really interacted with her, so I don't know how she is. Well, hers is the most diplomatic of all the marriages, so I can see why you don't really know her. Naruto nodded in agreement. Jiraiya got down on one knee to look at Naruto in the eyes. I'm on a limited time schedule, so I don't have much time to talk. That being said, I do need to give you something now that you start dating. Jiraiya's tone of voice was severe and serious. The same could be said for the look on his face. The perverted sage put on a hand in his coat and brought out a book that read Icha Tactics. Naruto knew what the book contained based on the interactions with Kakashi, but before he was able to voice his compliments, Jiraiya shushed him. I know that you don't like perverts, but that being said, there is absolutely nothing wrong with feeling perverted feelings. Everyone has somehow, somewhere inside of them, the perverted feelings. Now that you starting dating Kurtsuchi, you're going to start feeling some of these feelings. This. He gestured to the pornographic material in an outlet for those feelings to go through without you and Kurtsuchi doing something that could hurt either your relationship or treachery. Jiraiya finished. Whenever Jiraiya would try and convert Naruto into a pervert in the past, he always did so jokingly. This time, however, he seemed completely serious in every way. Knowing that he was serious didn't stop Naruto from taking the book with huge amount of trepidation. Jiraiya seemed to hesitate with saying the next part. Last thing, kid. With your training circuit and my spy network, I don't know when I'll have time to see you next. So I'm going to say what I need to say right now. Naruto nodded in agreement. When you and Kurotsuchi relationship gets stronger and stronger, you're eventually going to want to have sex with her. And when that happens, you want to make the next step. Make sure that she is as ready for it as you are. And don't forget to use the contraception jutsu. Naruto was flabbergasted. Eh? But I'm 13, I don't. Jiraiya held up his hand in silence. Naruto. Like I said, I don't know when I'm going to be able to see you next. So I thought it's a good idea for you to hear this now as opposed to never. With that, Jiraiya rose up from his spot of kneeling next to Naruto on the ground and said, I know that you're going to become a great shinobi if you keep on working at it. Just make sure that you keep in mind what I said about Kurotsuchi. It's one thing to train yourself into the ground in an effort to get stronger. It's a while other thing to even try to understand how a woman feels. Thanks, I guess, Parvi says, Naruto said to the pervert, still not extremely comfortable with the prospect of sexual intercourse at the moment in time. Jiraiya departed from the woods, leaving Naruto in deep thought. Before he could crack open the book to see what's inside, he winced in pain. The clone that he had sent off had managed to stab itself in the gut with the Nuibari. Naruto pocketed the book and went back to training. Link break. 8 hours later, May was starting to get worried. It was once the sun had set and she still hadn't seen neither hide or nor hair of her newly wedded husband that she started to wonder whether or not she would have sent someone along with Naruto to make sure that he'd be alright. The Nuibari was an extremely dangerous ninja weapon that was difficult to use, let alone master or train with. But until that point, she had been contented with the knowledge that the sword had chosen Naruto for some reason. If he was severely injured or even managed to kill himself, there would be hell to pay with the Kiri's rebels. The tent that she was in was no longer smaller than the average Kiri rebel tent. After all, sleeping in a tent that was twice as large as all the other tents would be a good tip off that someone important was using it as their temporary domicile. The contents differed very little from the common tents as well, but this had more to do with ease of transportation should they receive knowledge that they had to leave immediately. Inside the tent was a twin folding bed, a plastic folding table, and a spare kitchen area. The rebels were roughing it for shore. May was about to get up and search for her husband herself when the object of her thoughts stumbled through the tent flaps. Upon seeing her, he let out a relieved sigh. So this is where your tent is. I kept on asking directions for it, but I kept on getting lost. May was very relieved that her husband was alive, but made sure to not let it show on her face. So how was training? She asked with her usual smile. Naruto stretched out his sore muscles. Exhausting. How so? He didn't seem all that tired. I was more mentally exhausted than anything else. Naruto started looking around the area with a little bit of confusion. How is training with a sword mentally exhausting? She asked. I had to use shadow clones because it was too dangerous. Hey, is there something that I can change in privacy? Some place, Naruto said, changing the subject. Nope. These tents are built for one. May said with a smirk. Can I have my own? A lot of people are sharing tents as it is. It also wouldn't send a very good message to the rebellions or if its leader and her husband slept in different tents. Yeah, one bed then. May said. He sighed in acceptance. Can you not look for a second? I need to get in my pajamas. He asked her. You wear pajamas to bed? She questioned. You don't? I prefer to sleep in buff. Naruto's sweat dropped. I I'd feel a lot more comfortable if you wore something in bed. Or does my husband not like my body? She asked playfully. It's not that I just have a girlfriend and I'm really sure that she wouldn't appreciate me sleeping with a naked woman. Her facial expression went from playful to serious in a nanosecond. Girlfriend. You do know that if you date outside your wives that you'll put this treaty in jeopardy, right? I don't mean to sound cutthroat about this, but the rebellion needs all the help from the nations as it can get. Naruto held up a hand to stop her from continuing to speak. It's fine, her name is Kurotsuchi and she is my wife from Eva. May's face morphed back from serious to into playful. So you are okay with starting a relationship with your wives? How incredibly bold of you. It's nothing. It's not all. It's not all of them. Just her. Naruto stuttered it out. What about the rest of your wives then? Now that we're married, you're the only person that I can have relationship with. Truthfully, Naruto hadn't really thought about that aspect of the joint marriage very much. I'll deal with the problem when it's a problem. Now when it isn't, now can you please turn around? At that point, Naruto didn't want to think about any of the extensional crap due to tardiness. She turned her head away from him and started to undress as well. Nothing that she was probably getting ready for bed. 2. He turned away from her and got out his pajamas from one of the scrolls. When he was all ready and dressed up for bed, Naruto asked, You done yet? Without turning around. After a moment of shuffling, she hummed in positive. He turned around to see her in her undergarments. After averting his gaze, he asked, Really? What? Is something wrong? Yeah. Although Naruto felt as though he could argue with her about this well into the night, but he suggested not to. The bed, as mentioned before, was twin-sized. It would definitely need both occupants to cuddle in some way in order to fit them both. Do you want to be a big spoon or a little spoon? Naruto asked nonchalantly. May quirked an eyebrow. For someone with a girlfriend, you don't sound very conflicted about sleeping in the same bed with another woman. Naruto yawned. It's just sleep. If it's just sleep, then why are you uncomfortable with sleeping with me in a buff? Naruto eyes twitched. Okay. You wanted to sleep naked. Fine. I don't care anymore. You can do what you want. He asked. He walked over to the small bed and drew away the covers. Big spoon or small spoon? He repeated. After a moment of deliberation, May replied, Big. She opted to not get into her birthday suit, which Naruto was relieved about. They got into bed with each other. Once they were all situated and comfortable, Naruto started to doze off into slumber. With her arms wrapped around her torso, she sighed contentedly. It's nice sharing a bed with someone. Naruto was roused from his sleepy days from her words. Yeah, it is. Despite how late it was, May wasn't very tired. Hey Naruto, he said. You have a lot of friends, right? Yeah. What's that like? She asked with a moment of sincerity. Don't you have any friends? Not really. How can that be? You're so... Yes. She asked playfully. Nice. Thank you, sweetie. But you do know why I'm the leader of the rebellion, don't you? Naruto's silence spoke for himself. I was born with 2 Kekkeigenkais. Being born with 1 Kekkeigenkai is rare enough in the shinobi world, but being born with 2 is almost impossible. Naruto's eyes widened in surprise. 2? Which ones? Lava release and boil release. Anyway, since I was born with the 2 most powerful Kekkeigenkais, I was in shoe of becoming the leader of rebellion. Okay, how does this mean that you don't have any friends? He asked. I don't know. I guess that people find it hard to befriend someone who is high up and on a pedestal. Naruto was silent for a moment. So you're alone? She sighed wistfully. Yes, I suppose I'm alone. I have felt loneliness before. Actually, I've felt alone until just recently. Konoha doesn't like its Jinchuriki. No, I guess not, she said. But before a friend is like it's like knowing but finding a friend is like knowing that someone out there is like you or hates you even. For me, friendship is when someone likes or hates you, not because you have a demon in your gut, not because you have two Kagenkais, but when they do, it's because of you, the real you. And you have people like that in your life. Yeah, the first person who recognized me for me was my academy teacher, then Sasuke Teme, then Ji-san. It's nice knowing that someone sees you for you. Hmm, I guess that I wouldn't know then. Naruto didn't like the fact. May, hmm? She said, I can't, I can tell you feel most of the time. I don't know why you switch from emotion to emotion so quickly and suddenly. I don't know why you're always teasing me, but I do know one thing. Oh? She asked. You're nice, even if you've been alone for a long time. You're nice. Even if you're the leader of the rebellion, you're nice. Even if you hold two Kakegenkais, you're nice. I don't know a lot about you, but if you want to be friend, I'd like to find out more. He said with a smile on his face. May brought a hand up to his face and pinched his cheek. "Aw, my hubby says the nicest things," he said with a playful tone. While his cheeks was still getting pinched, he said, So? So what?" He swiped her hand away from his face and asked with a serious tone, "Do you want to be my friend?" May was silent for a bit. Perhaps befriending her husband wouldn't be a worse idea. "I think I would like that a lot, actually." She giggled a little to herself. "Is this how you make all of your friends, spooning with them in bed and giving a rousing and charismatic speech?" Naruto giggled a little bit at that as well. It wouldn't be the first time. As this is where I'm be leaving this part of, guys. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, please leave a like and subscribe to my channel. We're almost at 1k. I'm 8 subscribers away at the time of recording of this video, and when I'm gonna upload this video, I think I might have crossed 1k. And congratulations to you and me in the advance, I guess. And this is Apollo Chi, and I'm signing out. Peace.